Maya says you have answered them all, yes. But can you speak of this persistent idea that awakening is a sudden experience and everything up till then is a preparation for it? Can you speak of this persistent idea that awakening is a sudden experience and everything up till then is in preparation for it? Meaning, actually, nothing can be done for that, laughing out loud, but there is this feeling that everyone who truly we call awake had this conversion, then they are doing their best to show us how simple that is already here now. But for them, it was sudden and total. So let's really look at what it means, this awakening. Now, there are two things. One is that which we call the awakening, or that which we call the awakening experience. Now, it is true that most of our teachers have told us that the awakening experience, as it happened, was a sudden shift in perspective. And they say that there was not this separate me that I could find. It is like that. It is true that many have, in fact, most have these kind of reports. And it is rare to have those who talk about this sober awakening, where it was empty of a radical shift that happened in a moment. And yet, it is also true that all those who have had these radical shifts are now saying that it is not about that experience itself per se. It is just in that moment nothing happened except that I saw what I always was. And you can also see that right here, right now. So it's one of the conundrums of this play of consciousness. It is a conundrum in this appearance of this world. It's like the Buddha himself did a lot of austerities and practices and things. And then he said, none of that is needed. Just the middle path, moderation. So this is the way the world seems to play. Actually, in our Sangha, we have, we can say that there are many who are coming to this recognition in a very sober way, not necessarily with a lot of fireworks, a lot of radical shifting. Just every day, more and more clearing happening. So it is like that. At one level, it is a conundrum where it seems like most have had this kind of radical shifting, and then they say, but it is not about just that experience. It is about the recognition of who we are and not picking up the false conditioning. So, if you were to look at it just in a simple way, what happens in that moment? What happens in that moment is that it is seen that there is no individual me here, and it is seen that I am not a phenomenal object. You cannot find a location for yourself, you cannot find a reference point for yourself. But that is true even now. And yet, this, when it seems sudden, it can seem like we just caught up, seemingly so attached to this container, like the body. I'm an object within this body. I'm not an object within this body at all. In fact, it doesn't even feel like the body is an object. Nothing is an object. It just feels like everything is just light and nothing. So that moment can come. But the main point is that now, as you're finding this about yourself, it is completely possible to drop that which is false. Because if you were to check now, this is what we do every day. As we check now, we find that I'm not an object, I'm not a limited thing. Most of us do find this. Only some have this very radical sort of awakening experience, as you might call it. Persistent idea that awakening is a sudden experience. Now, there are many also who can have this awakening experience and are not yet awake in the same using the same terminology, are not yet liberated from the conditions they have put on themselves. In fact, there are some who had strong awakening experiences and yet have gone to deeply spiritually egoistic conditions about themselves. So the awakening experience, although very often is the end of the false uh, conditioning about ourselves, many times it can also lead to a lot of new spiritual conditioning about ourselves. So everything up till then is a preparation for it. It can seem like that when we look at the lives of these sages. Many times it can seem like that everything up till that point was preparation for it, and then that big shift happened. In fact, that is the reason why I rarely share the stories from here. It's just that sometimes when my children ask me with such great sincerity, I cannot get myself to say no, no, I won't share. But many times these things have become benchmarks for us. Is one thing I want to look at. Amaya also said, but for them it was sudden and total. So I would completely agree with the sudden part, but the total part is really not true. Even if you look at the lives of the greatest sages, you will find that many of them went into a period of silence where everything that was still remaining was washed away, wiped clean. Not everything, 99.997%. Because everything also becomes a condition. So sudden, yes, but total, no. Mostly, in fact, it has been that you'll notice that even for those who had sudden awakening experience, have gone into prolonged periods of silence where the cleanup job continued in that period of silence.